We are live. Deacon, if you can bless this stream for us very quickly.
Hello,
everyone. Welcome back to another live stream. We're going to be doing part 2 of responding to Craig's 2-month-old video on how we lack holy orders because of our questionable canonicity. We went through part 1. That was a very long stream responding, and we barely covered just the beginning part of his live stream. There's still much more to react to. Brothers, anything to introduce? Anything new to talk about?
Yeah, I want to apologize to Craig for being mean to him. Sorry, Craig, that I was mean in the first one, and I hope that I'm not going to be mean again this time, so that I don't have to apologize again. I'm worried that I will, because the information that is being presented by you is so nonsensical, and I don't know if I have the virtue of patience enough to not be mean. But it's not personal towards you. I want to say, for me personally, it's much more offensive to put our patriarchs in a thumbnail with X's on them, and to talk about our whole church to not have valid orders, than if you made a whole stream just bashing me as a person. That I wouldn't care about. What you did was much more offensive than that. For you, you're taking it as you're offended because of whatever is coming towards you instead of the information being presented. For me, it's the opposite. So this is all happening. The last stream, this stream, actually everything we've Oriental Orthodox have done online in the last 7 years is happening because of Eastern Orthodox attacking us. None of this at all would have ever happened if nobody talked about us. So maybe if you guys just stop talking about us, we don't have to do any of this. How about that?
Yeah. I want to add, like, this turned personal when it shouldn't have been, but it never really was from our side. When Craig first invited us on his channel, and we had a very cordial discussion, I don't recall any bad blood during that talk. But immediately it turned personal when my own channel was threatened by a copyright strike. Like, I was close, not being able to repeal this one, get rid of it. It turned personal. We've been trying to keep it mature. I don't recall saying anything too crazy. We could have been much nicer. We're not going to deny that. We could be much nicer. But Craig is making this seem as if like we called his church Mossad and Hamas or something. I don't know. I heard that from his side.
Yeah, or the martyrs are like Hezbollah, or
we'll see how this one goes. Like you said, hopefully our patience is kept. Pray for us that we're able to be patient throughout this stream. Moss and Simply Rakotian. Simply Rakotian seems to be our new PhD scholar on the suburban Alexandria named Rakot. Rakoti is how you pronounce it officially. I saw Michael Wingert say that on Twitter. So my apologies if he's watching this. Rakote, you guys know how to pronounce it? Moss, Simply? How do I pronounce it?
Rakoti, yeah.
Rakoti, okay.
Real quick before we start, I just want to share a quick quote because some people were asking about it. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Can everyone see?
Yes.
Okay, so the first two we covered last stream, but the very bottom for so-called Saint Proterius, here is a specific quotation, because a lot of EOs were challenging us in the comments. They were like, can you actually cite your sources? We don't believe you. Here's a specific source, and this is only one of many, and this is a scholar, by the way. This isn't some, like, rando, like, please, like, here's the difference. Like, when we actually cite someone, it's not just our opinion. This is the scholar saying. So 30,000 in 1 hour, right there. I wasn't making it up. Okay, so that's just real quickly. But yeah, that's a side tangent. Moss, do you have anything to add before we get started, or do you just want to get into it?
No, I think Sadiq summarized all my thoughts pretty well on this whole situation. But I think we're definitely ready to let's get started.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get the stream up.
present my stream. I have, present my screen. I have the video set.
Oh, and by the way, I forgot to add this. Craig commented on our video, and his response was, "I didn't watch it." That was his response. I don't know where he got the idea. We were being mean without his own experience of it. I guess you just heard it.
He told me. He said he called me. He said, "Look, I'm not gonna watch it because I'm worried that it's gonna hurt my feelings." So, like, is there anything that is offensive? Should I watch it? I said, honestly, I think the most offensive thing is me calling you Ronald McDonald on there. I can't remember anyone else kind of saying anything.
I don't even recall anything.
And he goes, "That's not a big deal. They called me ketchup and mustard." Like,
Okay.
but I don't know. He was like, but again, he's prioritizing like his feelings about whatever's being said about him. What you said, Craig, about us, our church, we would all happily be like, make streams making fun of our persons. Yeah. But don't do that about our church.
Yeah. They said Agen was mean for laughing in the Erhan debate. Yeah, I take that. It's the biggest regret of my life. For laughing. If I could just go back and undo that.
Yeah,
okay,
that was
we
so
have the
mean.
stream up.
Yep.
Yeah. And by the way, like, it's not like we're just like making fun of, like, 99% of the stream is substance. We're spending like 1 second maybe laughing. That's just like 1 second during the stream, just to keep it a little bit light, so it's not just us yapping.
And
so.
Craig, what do you think? You think if we see you with a flat tire on the side of the road, we're gonna point and laugh at you? No, we're gonna get out of the car and come help you, all of us. What are you talking about?
Of all the examples you could think of, wow, that's an emotional one.
Chick-fil-A roadside service. All right, let's
whatever. You guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, we got you.
All right, let's get into the video.
It's muted. It's muted. Restream it. Press the audio button.
Real quick, guys. Well, while Mossy's doing that, we're gonna get into the part where we're first starting to talk about Saint Severus, the crown of the Syrians. So this is off to a bang from the start. So we're going to be talking a lot about Saint Severus, what happened during that time, violence even, and is Saint Severus guilty of violence, etc., etc. And we'll get into that in a few minutes here. All right, Moss, whenever you're ready.
Okay, we ready?
All right. Yeah.
In the 530s, and we kind of have to wade through that to get a good idea of which side is in the right, at least canonically speaking. Now, similar to Dioscorus and Silverius of Rome, right? So we have Silverius of Rome was deposed, and Dioscorus Alexander was deposed. We had court non-Chalcedonian patriarchs that had imperial depositions, so they weren't originally deposed by their own synod. They deposed just because the emperor said they're deposed. But the local synods and other patriarchs accepted what the emperor did, and this granted legitimacy. So we don't oppose this because this happened to Dioscorus and everyone accepts this. This happened to Silverius and everyone accepts this. And it's no different with the court non-Chalcedonian patriarchs. Now, the majority of local synods accepted and elected replacements in all cases. I want to point out they're bishops, all right?
So I'm going to pause right here. Take a moment to observe the claim that Craig is making. The local synods accepted imperial depositions, and this granted legitimacy in all cases. That's a really bold claim coming from him, right? If we take a look at Saint Athanasius, for instance, how many emperors was he deposed by? Four emperors. Constantinus II, Julian the Apostate, and Valens. All four deposed him.
I want to add. You can add a fifth one. Magnentius, right before Constantius controlled East and West. Even he wanted Athanasius out.
Well, there you go, right? That's five now. 5 patriarchs deposed him. Did the Alexandrian five emperors deposed him? Did the Alexandrian Synod recognize these depositions as valid? Of course not. So he's saying the majority of local synods accepted / elected replacements in all cases. That's totally not the case, right? And notice the 2 examples that he's citing. He's citing Dioscorus, which we have already refuted and rejected. The next example he's citing is Silverius. Why is he citing Silverius? Let's take a moment to discuss Silverius. He was a Chalcedonian, right? He was deposed by the general of Justinian named Basilius. who was also a Chalcedonian. And the reason why Silverius was deposed was for treason and conspiring with the Goths to betray Rome. Right? So Silverius was replaced by Vigilius by the Roman Synod. So what exactly has Craig done here with this example? He's referencing a Chalcedonian deposing a Chalcedonian whose deposition was recognized by a Chalcedonian synod who elected a Chalcedonian to replace the Chalcedonian. What are we doing, right? If your claim is that the majority of local synods accepted the replacements of depositions from the empire in all cases, cite some precedents from the early church. Cite some examples that we can accept, but you haven't. What's going on here? I think we can continue.
The majority of local synods bishops accepted elected replacements to the non-Chalcedonian patriarchs in all cases. All right, this is not something that is disputed. What's disputed is how free were they in doing this, or were they just a bunch of puppets of, let's say, Constantinople, and these weren't free acts of the synods? Now, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, I'm not God, this seems to me based on cooperative synods in response to imperial strong army, right? So like Peter Mongus being translated after John Natalia's being kicked out by Zeno. I'm not going to say that Peter Mongus then wasn't legitimately patriarch. I said he was regularized. So there's some strong arming, but then people do go along with strong arming. And we have a modern analog to this, the disease we can't name because to get this channel taken down, right? We saw this with synods 5 years ago. So why would this be different hundreds of years ago? There's a difference between outright persecution and strong arming, but people go along with it. And clearly we have strong arming, people go along with it. By the way, there's a big war in Iran right now. No one likes it, no one's in favor of it, but are you stopping it? Are you protesting against it? You're just going along with it. So it's really not illegal. It might be unconstitutional, but it's not illegal. No one's opposing this. And so very similarly, people cannot be happy with some of these machinations, but it's kind of relevant. They go along with it. And in fact, then they go elect replacements, which is a tacit approval of the deposition. And so that said, full patriarchal acceptance was eventually obtained for these depositions. So Severus' deposition / his abdication in 518 was not recognized by Alexandria until 537 to 538. The point is, it eventually was.
Really? So Saint Severus's deposition was recognized by Alexandria by 537, 538? You sure about this? Let's take a look at the history, right? So this claim relies on an important assumption that Alexandria during these years was held by the parallel Chalcedonian patriarch Paul of Tabenesis rather than the Orthodox patriarch. So simple, do you mind covering some history here, and let's really dig deep into this claim? Do you mind covering this timeline?
Real quick before you guys get into that,
go ahead.
Are we gonna also throw the argument back of Justinian calling Severus patriarch in 536? Are we gonna also throw the argument back of Justinian calling Severus patriarch in 536? I just heard that come back to me.
Hold on.
I think Mossy's echoing. Yeah, there we go.
There you go.
That was the second nature.
Second nature. So for real though, because Justinian called Severus patriarch in 536 after their line is established in 518. So now what, Craig, your saint emperor is calling our patriarch 18 years after you guys have a line. So what do you do with that?
Yeah, it looks like this whole thing is begging the question. Oh yeah, all the patriarchs, they recognized it just for him to not provide any substantive evidence, and on top of it, assume his own parallel lines. And even if he is assuming his own parallel lines, Justinian rejected the parallel line and recognized Severus as the authentic one. So what's going on here? It's like every place Craig is going here, like it just gets like reset by his own position. Like the funniest thing. Go ahead. I was just gonna say that the funniest thing, like we were just talking about it in the last stream, like with John Talia and Peter Mongus, right? He spends the first 40 minutes of his stream going on about how all of this was done uncanonically, just for his dude to abdicate, right? Now he's going through this whole motion of all the patriarchs recognize this right after a slide talking about imperial depositions, just for the very emperor to recognize Severus's position.
So imagine,
welcome back, boss.
Their guy, no problem. Imagine if their guy, like Paul the Jew or Ephraim of Ahmed or one of their guys, one of our people calls him patriarch. Imagine what Craig would do with that.
Yeah, it would be like literally just conceding the point.
Yeah. So Justinian calls Severus patriarch in 536. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
It's crazy. I'll just give a quick brief background to this. So basically, Saint Severus himself tells us that Egypt as a country was united against Leo's tome and the Council of Chalcedon. And even historians add that, like, friend Alexandrian chauvinism and self-assertiveness and suspicion of any form of imperial invention in their ecclesiastical affairs made an Egyptian national religion based on the teaching of Cyril and Cyril alone a reality. If this cause was threatened, as it was in Justin's reign, it could be claimed by an eyewitness that the whole people of Egypt are ready to strip themselves for like the contests and rise in its defense. And proof of this is recorded in the History of the Patriarchs of Alexandria, amazing historical book on Egypt. But essentially, like, this is critically acclaimed. Even in the History of Patriarchs, records that when Paul arrived at Alexandria, Paul the Jew, not one of
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. This is not
Yeah.
Paul the Jew here. We're referring to Paul of Tabenesis.
Oh,
This
my bad,
is the patriarch of the Chalcedonian parallel at the time of 537, 538, the time where Craig claims Egypt rejected Saint Severus. So pay attention here. Go ahead.
My bad. There's a bunch of Pauls in here.
Yeah, I know.
So Paul of Tabenesis arrived at Alexandria. Not one of its inhabitants would receive him, for they said, "This is the new Judas," and he remained a year, during which none would listen to him, nor communicate from his hand, except the envoy who accompanied him, and the soldiers who arrived with him, and the governor and his attendants only. Nobody wanted him there. Nobody wanted this Chalcedonian enforced rule in there. And Prospus says that his first act was to kill a famous Coptic deacon, I'm going to butcher the Psopses, who was a prominent voice of orthodoxy in Egypt and stood firm against the emperor's policies. The people were furious at this murder, and so Justinian, in an attempt to pacify them, had the governor executed, the governor Rodon executed, in spite of Rodon simply obeying the orders of Paul. Zacharias Rhetor tells us that Paul was eventually deposed for his involvement in the murder and replaced by a monk named Zolius, who was once again accompanied by soldiers. In order to protect this man from the violence of people, that they appointed Acacius Bar Ixopho of Amidia, tribune of the Romans there. And this is recorded in the Chronicle of Zacharias of Melitene. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, you want to finish your thoughts?
Yeah, so basically, like, you can see here that this is going to be a recurring cycle throughout history. The Chalcedonians, when they want to impose something, they don't go in nicely. They kill a bunch of people and they say, "Here's your patriarch. He's not even Egyptian. Accept it." And this is what happens all throughout history. Go ahead, Mark.
And so it is true, during this period, 537, 538, there was conflict in Alexandria between the people. The chronicler Jean of Nicu tells us Alexandria was divided into two factions. We have the Julianists, the followers of Gaianus, and the followers of Saint Theodosius, the Orthodox believers. So while he's describing this conflict between these two sides, he tells us, "There arose an uproar among the Alexandrians, and they fought with one another. However, there was none who supported Paul, as he was an apostate and an historian. And it was not only Alexandria, but every city that disapproved of him, for he was a persecutor and loved to shed blood." And so some, you continue. You go ahead. Sorry,
we're in the 530s now.
530s, yes. We're in the period that Craig is claiming that Alexandria accepted Saint Severus's deposition. Okay. This is Craig's claim that we're trying to refute.
Are we going to go back to the 518s or no? We're staying here.
I believe we will return to the 518s.
We'll
yes,
return. We'll keep it for
yes. Later. Don't worry. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so Craig is expecting us to believe here that this vehemently anti-Chalcedonian city of Alexandria, who was loyal to Saint Severus, who hosted him when he fled Antioch, who welcomed him, somehow recognized his deposition 20 years later. Are we serious? And yeah, I think, does anyone have any other thoughts to share on this?
No, pretty much. We just want to drill down.
All right.
This is not the minority opinion, nor was this
Yes.
forced on the Egyptian
Yes,
people. So
yes. The whole point is by the 530s, no, the Egyptian people still recognized Pope Theodosius and still absolutely rejected the parallel, who was Paul of Tanis or Tabanese. So let's continue. I figured out the sharing screen issue, so hopefully we don't get that again.
Got full patriarchal acceptance of his deposition. And as referring to before, this makes the years 536 to 538 crucial because the events create difficulties for both sides, but only one side ever attains to any full acceptance in the Chalcedonian side. Now, Severus, Anthemus, and Theodosius, those court non-Chalcedonians we're talking about, were all officially deposed or abdicated, and those were all recognized in 536. How did this occur? There was a council held, which was accepted by Constantinople, Rome, and Jerusalem. And the grounds of deposition were not simply, they're not Chalcedonian. They had these canonical reasons. So, for example, Anthemus was deposed for a translation that wasn't accepted. And there's canons on episcopal translations, moving seas. And this reminds me of something a monk told me. He said, everyone violates the canons, so they punish you when they want to. So clearly that's not fair, obviously, right? Like, we'll accept some people's translations, but not yours when it suits us. But that's one of those things, why they put compromised people in positions of power, because then they could take it all away from them. Kind of like those files we can't name without having this video removed, right? The same letters as Epic Fury are those files. But that being said, everyone violates the canons, everyone breaks law, but they punish you when they want to. All right, and that is what happened to these non-Chalcedonian patriarchs. Now, let's get into more detail when it comes to each of their situations. So, I'm not just speaking, painting with a very broad brush. Now, Severus and Philoxenus constituted, to quote Haywood, a small minority of a synod against St. Flavian II of Antioch in 509. And in Sidon in 511 synod, the anti-Chalcedonians were no match for their opponents, leading to the emperor disbanding the council. So what's the significance of this? And this is quoted in Haywood's book. That despite imperial supports, they had the emperor behind them. All right. The court non-Chalcedonians were not numerous enough to impose themselves. So who's the majority? Let's be honest. Who's the majority? They were, the non-Chalcedonians, a small minority, even with imperial strong army. They were still.
Enough of that. Let's quickly refute this point. So he's claiming even with imperial strong arming, we were a small minority. Okay, so I'm gonna quote something here from a scholar named Jenkins Phillips. Monophysite teachings dominated in Syria and Egypt and also prevailed in the Christian states of Armenia and Ethiopia. Orthodox supporters of the Council of Chalcedon were so massively outnumbered that they were dismissively known as the Melkites. One more quote. This is from W.A. Wigram, The Separation of the Monophysites. Monophysites were no more than a party everywhere except in Egypt, where they were all powerful. But that party was the majority in Palestine and Syria and was not negligible in the capital and in Asia Minor. There were plenty of laity and monks among the Monophysites. There was a fair supply of clergy. Chalcedonians were negligible in Egypt and a minority in all the Orient. Right? So the claims that we were a minority in Antioch and Alexandria is entirely a Chalcedonian one. And also the councils of Antioch in 509 and the Synod of Sidon in 511, these claims that we were a minority in these synods is strictly drawn from Evagrius Scholasticus, who was not a contemporary. He was born 20 years after this. And we have accounts that contradict this claim. For example, a contemporary named Count Marcellinus, he relates that at the command of the Byzantine Emperor Anastasius assembled about 80 unorthodox bishops. He's calling us unorthodox, so this is a Chalcedonian account, at Sidon in order to persecute the Orthodox bishops, Flavian, Patriarch of Antioch, and John, Bishop of Paltus in Syria, because they rejected this sacrilegious assembly. So Count Marcellinus here is calling this council wicked, sacrilegious, and composed of unorthodox bishops. So how could we be a minority? How could we be a minority in this council if, as this contemporary is claiming, it was a sacrilegious assembly of unorthodox bishops? Additionally, Zacharias Ritor says on these two councils as well, the bishops of the council assembled proclaimed the whole truth, and they wrote letters both to John of Alexandria and to Timothy of the royal city, and also Elijah of Jerusalem. At that time, sent to the letters. The priests were again united in this concord of the faith. Right? So how could we possibly be a minority in these synods if these two accounts, these two historical accounts, are claiming that these synods were run by Orthodox or non-Chalcedonian bishops? Would anyone else like to add anything to this? All right.
No, it's an anachronistic reading of history. So just keep going.
Let's continue.
A small minority. Now, to quote the same book, Evagrius, reporting eyewitness events or eyewitness accounts, describes the ensuing violence between anti-Chalcedonian monks who arrived in Antioch from Syria Prima and the largely Chalcedonian populace of the city who slaughtered their opponents. So who is bringing wholesale slaughter to the populace? We don't have this at the Chalcedonian side, killing the lady that is not in rebellion. It is like BLM being busted to town. These foreign monks come in support of Severus and start slaughtering the residents of the city. All right, so this is a very ignominious beginning of Severus' rise to the patriarchate, but it's what occurred. Now, that being said,
I think we could talk about this for a second. Yeah. So
give me like a minute about this, bro. This guy who apparently we're being very mean to just compared our monks and our clergy to BLM, a bunch of crazed people rioting, which not only is not true, right? It's hypocritical. Every Melkite patriarch, every Chalcedonian patriarch we have discussed this far, last stream and the beginning of this stream, has been responsible for an insane amount of slaughter. 30,000 Copts, a bunch of Syrian Orthodox, etc., etc. I can't even imagine the amount in collective history that they've killed. Like, it's disgusting. So Evagrius himself describes the Chalcedonian populace as the slaughters of the monks. The non-Chalcedonian monks, not the other way around. Your own source debunks you, Craig. Your own source. Read it. It's not me. I'm not making it up. That's all I wanted to say. Does anyone else have anything?
So okay. Craig is referencing Evagrius here, right? And he's saying, we are like BLM because foreign monks came into the towns and they slaughtered the citizens. So he's completely butchering this quote. I don't have it on me, so I can't pull it up. But the reference he gave, let me just 1 second. I guess it doesn't show on the screen. But Evagrius describes the Chalcedonian populace as the slaughterers of these monks, not the other way around. Right, so he's butchering his own source. I just wanted to add that, and anybody for themselves can see. Right, this is publicly accessible. This is on the internet.
Okay, so can you go to the where he has the next slide up, please? Yeah. When he's saying Severus never received patriarchal reception, he's saying he was never recognized as patriarch.
Yes.
Except by Justinian. So, okay. When they have him in the anathemas, when these guys have him in the anathemas, they say Severus, who was patriarch of Antioch. They say that in their anathemas. All right. Now, in the Greek Orthodox Church of Antioch, the Chalcedonians, I said this last time, in 512 to 518, in their line, from 512 to 518, the patriarch for their church was Severus of Antioch. So what in the blue hell are you talking about? You see how this happening again? It's starting. Go ahead.
Flavian II was exiled to Petra by the emperor. He perhaps abdicated. I've seen differing things depending on the historian, and I'll leave that to someone else who gets the nitty-gritty of that. But he leaves. Initially, only 12 bishops recognized Severus, but a 513 synod accepted him. So I'm going to be charitable and say locally, St. Flavian's deposition was accepted, not by the other patriarchs, but locally it was accepted, and Severus' patriarchate was locally accepted, and in some of the patriarchs, not all, not Jerusalem or Rome, accepted Severus' patriarchate. And as I stated, Severus never received patriarchal reception, even after death, by all the patriarchs, which is what's necessary. It was always in dispute. And granted, neither did Meletius fully. Though Rome sort of half recognized them, they recognized both him and Paulinus.
I want to pause.
At the same time in 379.
Everybody on Twitter from the Roman Catholic side has been especially, how do I word this, bullying Craig after our stream against him. Because Craig always reads his own post-Chalcedonian pentarchy view, which he made up out of the thin air in order to combat papal claims in his tradition. Like, what canons say explicitly, you need every single patriarch, and there's 5 of those that are divinely instituted, and if only one of those is lacking, you don't have all of patriarchal assent. Where are you getting this from? You can't read in your own ecclesiology and then critique our ecclesiology based on your own inventions and machinations. Like, where are you getting this from? He's already granting Severus was recognized by, I forgot the names. He said Alexander, Constantinople, and Severus' own local synod. Okay, so he did have reception. That's how everyone was back then. You think like there was a letter preserved every time somebody was ordained from Jerusalem, Constantinople, Alexander, and Rome, right? Like, we don't have that. The evidence doesn't point to that, not because of some silence, but because your made-up anti-papal ecclesiology doesn't exist in the early church.
Yeah, absolutely, right. So he's talking about this synod in 513, where Saint Severus was accepted. Let's just take a minute to talk about the synod, right? So Elias of Jerusalem was deposed, and it confirmed the unity between Alexandria through John II, Antioch through Saint Severus, and Constantinople through Saint Timothy. Rome here is the sole opposition, and this is through Hormisdas and Symmachus. So who's the majority? Who's the majority? We have Alexandria once again, right? Because this happened under the Henoticon, this happened in the 470s, and it's happening again at the Synod of Tyre. We have Alexandria, Antioch, and Constantinople all coming together under Emperor Anastasius and a common unity of faith. And Rome is the sole opposition. Is he trying to argue for the papacy here? I don't know.
Repeat that again. Who is the sole group that
Rome.
didn't accept?
Rome, through Hormisdas and Symmachus.
And when's the 2 times that happened again?
The Henoticon era under Zeno, as well as the Emperor Basilicus in the 470s.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right.
So he's it was Anastasius the emperor,
Yes,
who recognizes Severus's ascension to the patriarchate. I think it's at the Synod of Tyre.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Now, this shows that he is the patriarch of Antioch, like the patriarch. There's no rival to him in 512. They agree with this. So when he's saying only 12 bishops recognized him, that's not true. Everybody recognized him. So I don't know what Craig is talking about. Like, it's really like this should be studied. Craig's presentation should be studied like in a concerned kind of way.
I have something to add real quickly here, because he keeps saying like Alexandria was Chalcedonian dominant and like we basically like influenced everybody. Alexandria was literally the majority, again, was non-Chalcedonian. You know how we know? The liturgy. At the time of Chalcedon, it got so bad that the Copts, they used to use Greek for their liturgy early on, right? The Coptic liturgy used to be in Greek in Egypt because, you know, Greek was the language of Alexandria and it was easier to talk with everyone in Greek. So they made the liturgy mostly in Greek. At this time, right after Chalcedon, the liturgy becomes all in Coptic. That's because why? Because we wanted to distinguish ourselves from the Chalcedonians. Why would we do that if we were all being like forced to do this? Why would we be forced to switch our liturgy to the language of Coptic, the language of the Egyptians? Why would we do this?
Also, a little bit of a tangent, but why is it that during Severus's lifetime, not a single Chalcedonian was able to go one-on-one with him? Why did Severus have the entire Chalcedonian world on their heels by himself?
Yeah, they threatened to cut out his tongue, and we'll discuss this later. But that's how scared they were of Saint Severus, and that's why he ended up fleeing Antioch. And we'll cover this.
Before we continue, right now he's mentioning Severus and whether he's canonically instated. What happened to Alexandria? I don't recall when he changed the subject and why. So after Peter Mongus' abdication, how did he deal with that? Or sorry, John Talia's abdication, Peter Mongus' rise. How did he end up dealing with that? If anyone can remind me, or is he going to talk about it again?
I believe he skipped through this part of history. I think he's skipping straight to Pope Theodosius, and he's gonna claim that Pope Theodosius abdicated willingly.
Okay, so
Well,
as of right now,
we'll find out.
his stream has pretty much been retconned. He's just gonna come back to it later. Now he's just focusing on Antioch. Okay.
Yeah,
All
he's
right,
leaving
we'll
it
see.
for someone who'll get into it nitty gritty. He's just
We'll
giving us an
see.
overview.
Alexander is standing good right now. 56 minutes into your history.
Not a lot of people talk about this, but worth pointing out. But eventually, Meletius lying through St. Flavian was accepted. So we could say eventually there was full patriarchal acceptance even after death of Meletius. We know his patriarchate was legitimate, but it never occurred for Severus. He never met that standard. We have, what's up, fella Trulodites? And I just want people to know, don't ever by all means take those energies and do something productive. I would very much appreciate that.
Uncreated energies.
So it sounds like a term in geology. It does sound like some sort of metamorphic rock, right? So Justin becomes emperor in 518, and Severus is summoned to Constantinople for a trial. I think it's pretty understandable. Severus like, I'm not going to listen to the emperor anymore. It's nice when he was hurting my enemies, but I'm not going to take my chances with Justin. And it reminds me of the scripture where Jesus says, you live by the sword and you die by the sword. So Severus...
Saint Severus lived by the sword? Really? Are we seriously quoting this?
What happened to the Byzantine Empire?
This is like, I think he even uses like the Catholic, like some Catholics claim that Saint Severus came in when he was like made patriarch, hired a bunch of mercenaries and killed a bunch of monks. That, number one, that's ridiculous. And number two, the sources for that are like centuries later. That never happened. That's made up. Saint Severus never hired a bunch of monks. He never killed 300 people on the day that he was enthroned. This is all made up. So
I just want to bring
this
up,
is ridiculous.
I just want to bring up when his side is murdering our position, he doesn't bat an eye. When he thinks he has something on us, his absolute misreading of Evagrius, which was actually talking about the Chalcedonian being slaughters, all of a sudden the scripture comes in handy. Those who live by the sword die by the sword.
And I'll tell you what, this scripture will come, not for him, but it will come handy for us when we continue to discuss the decline of the Byzantine Empire in the eastern regions.
Craig, why, when you always bring up Jacob Beredeus, why do you always say, oh, they only had 3 bishops or less than 3 bishops? Why do we only have that many? Where did the other ones go?
Yeah,
That's such a great point. We're gonna get into that. That's such a great
They
point.
went to Rakow.
They went to Rakow. They were never seen again.
All right. Let's continue observing his claims.
Lived by the sword. That's how he became the patriarch. That's how probably he wasn't killed in Antioch. He had imperial protection, and now he's got to flee because now the sword is against him. So him and 55 other bishops.
Wait. Pause.
And
Did he just Freudian slip and say Severus didn't die because he had imperial support? What does that entail? Who's trying to kill him?
Good question.
The Rakotians. All right, keep going, bro.
Ongoing persecution of Justin. It certainly was some persecution because it's mentioned in his letters that flame and sword was to be used against his enemies. But it's worth pointing out that there are 1,200 bishops roundabout in the empire at the time. 55 is a minority, and not all 55 were Severians. 55 is just the total people that were essentially sent to the Roman Empire version of Siberia, which was Egypt.
That's not true. I don't know where he's getting this claim from. What do you mean So we know for sure that the 55 bishops that were deposed were non-Chalcedonian. We know this for a fact, right? Where is he getting this claim from otherwise? Additionally, so I have a quote here from Volker Menze. to argue, if you guys remember earlier in the last stream when we talked about the deposition at 518, when not a single bishop was made known of their deposition. This is what Volker Menze had to say. In one respect, only the council remained legally problematic. Its decision to depose or condemn a bishop needed to be handed out to this bishop. But this seems to have happened with neither Severus nor any other non-Chalcedonian bishop in 519. So they assembled a council, they deposed 50 Orthodox bishops, and that was that. Nobody knew, but whatever. He also, like, Craig tries to paint this narrative that Saint Severus fled because he was summoned to the council. But we know the real reason why he fled Antioch. It's because I mentioned this earlier, his tongue was being threatened to be cut off by a man named Vitalian.
No. So it wasn't just that. The libellus of Hormisdas happens.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of the. So in 5, he's not going to talk about it, I don't think, because he's very embarrassed about the libellus. Does he mention the libellus of Hormisdas?
Don't think so.
Yeah, he doesn't, because he's super embarrassed. So the libellus of Hormisdas, since we're at this time, because that's what's on the screen, Justin becomes emperor. So when Justin becomes emperor, Justin is an Italian. So he wants to reconcile Italy. So Pope Hormisdas tells him, I want this formula to be imperial policy. So Justin says, okay, no problem. And he imposes it. What is the formula? That anyone who dies outside of communion with Rome from what is so-called the Agen Schism, even if they were Chalcedonian, which that wasn't even a thing, would be removed from the diptychs. That was the formula of Hormisdas.
Yeah.
Volker Menze has a book about it. I strongly recommend reading that. So Severus wouldn't sign the formula of Hormisdas. He was exiled. Philoxenos was killed. John of Tella was exiled and then killed. All these people in Syria, this is what's happening to them. The formula of Hormisdas was non-applicable in Egypt because literally the entire province would have been exterminated because Egypt was 100% Orthodox, non-Chalcedonian. So it just shoots Craig in the face, whatever you want to say, because he's saying that we weren't around or whatever it is he's trying to say. All of Egypt was us. Last time I checked, they're not papists. Why is the formula of Hormisdas canonical? To remove a patriarch. So the Bishop of Rome can unilaterally remove a patriarch if he wants to. Okay, so then be Roman Catholic.
Yeah, thank you so much for that explanation, Subdeacon. And like we can corroborate this claim, right? So Grillmeyer says in the Patriarchate of Antioch alone, roughly 40 bishops had to surrender their offices because they wanted to remain loyal to Severus. Mm-hmm. Why would they have to surrender, right? Additionally, in the early part, this is from Shabbat, in the early part of 519, the banishment of anti-Chalcedonian bishops began and at first continued until 522. According to a list that was probably compiled at Constantinople, apart from Severus, 52 other bishops lost their sees. Right? So where's he getting this from? That
but he knows. I've talked to him about it. He knows about the formula of Hormisdas. So for him to not bring it up is very dishonest.
Yeah.
Very dishonest. This again, how I said last time, Craig, I'm disappointed in you. I'm still very disappointed. I'm more disappointed now in you. I hope. Is that mean? Is that mean that I'm disappointed? Am I going to need to apologize again? I don't care. Fine. No problem. But that's the truth. Like, you know about the formula of Hormisdas and you're purposely not talking about it.
All right, let's keep going.
And so there was a persecution this time, but it would be inaccurate to say these were all Severians. So it's a minority, and the Severian portion is a smaller part of that portion.
That's not true. We demonstrated this.
Now, that said, Severus had to struggle with low numbers of committed anti-Chalcedonian clergy. Right? They were not the majority, unlike what the stereotypes tell you. They, even 100 years after Chalcedon, they're not the majority. In his exile, his concern must have been there was little opportunity among the anti-Chalcedonians, the diasporas of canonically ordained.
We don't say we were the majority in Syria 100 years later. Like Agen said last time, within 20 years, we are, after Chalcedon. By the turn of the century, Palestine, which was previously a non-Chalcedonian bastion, by the 6th century becomes purely Chalcedonian. It was non-Chalcedonian in the 5th century, Chalcedonian in the 6th century. All of the coastal Levant is Chalcedonian by after the Libellus of Hormisdas. It's the inland areas closer to Mesopotamia that remain Orthodox, and Egypt. Egypt never switches until today. Until today, 99% of Egyptian Christians are Orthodox. They're non-Chalcedonian.
Yep.
Yeah,
So I don't know what he's talking about, as usual.
I do want to say something about the Orthodox in Syria and the East and the Orient around the 518. This is what scholar Hein Thaler says. After Severus became patriarch, he and Philoxenus tried to win followers with good success. Now, at any rate, by 518, the majority of sees were occupied by their adherents, who mostly preferred exile to accepting Chalcedon. And then they say Severus's term of office in Antioch thus marked the preponderance of Monophysitism in Antioch. So even in Syria, even in the Mesopotamia, right? These bishops were more than willing to give up their sees once this libellus came, once the persecutions came, because they were loyal to the faith and they were loyal to Saint Severus.
Yep.
Maybe the thing is, maybe the reason why we take it personally when he's dissing our church instead of our persons, and he does the opposite. I think it's a cultural thing. That too. Remember last time I was like, he's white, whatever. This time, I think this is that also. Like, for him, this is just information, like scholarship. So what? We're talking about it. No, this is the whole world for us.
Yes.
We die for this.
Yes.
Yep.
And Subdeacon, this is because our faith is everything, right? Our church is what has been preserved for 2,000 years. It wasn't our nation. We don't have a nation, right? Like, for example, in Egypt, first came the Greeks, then came the Romans, then came the Persians, then came the Arabs. We don't have a nation. We don't care about the nation. Our life is the church. And so when our church is attacked, that's everything to us. We put our lives on the line to defend it.
But
And
it's
the same is
also
true.
it's also that we have been dying for 2,000 years. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of like, this runs very deep for us. This isn't something we just attached ourselves to. Like, this comes from our ancestors. They died for it, and and their fathers died, and then we're willing, if we're blessed by God, to be in that opportunity to. So, I don't think he realizes what he's saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's provable. Like, we're literally the Church of Martyrs for a reason, and they'll even, like, sometimes they even have to, like, lower to this level of, oh well, we had persecutions too. Like, it's not comparable. The church lives and breathes martyrs. Like, from the time before the empire was Christian to the time of now, we have always died for the faith.
Yeah, we never had a break. Never.
Yeah, and
we're the church of blood.
If you take all the blood of Refuting and you put it on a scale, it outweighs the whole church, guys.
All right. Yeah, and literally, like, this is a historical fact as well. Like, for example, Grillmeyer even continues and says the situation was different for the patriarchates of Antioch and Alexandria. In these existed strong majorities against Chalcedon and for the old Alexandrian tradition in the sense of Cyril, hint, hint, or Cyrillian. It was in these that the number and severity of the interventions by the imperial church, i.e. the Chalcedonians, rapidly increased. They had to keep killing us. There was too many of us. And then he continues and says the bishops who had fled or been banished retained a power which was capable of depriving Justinian's restoration program of its results, despite 10 years' efforts. Those who had been deposed ordained new clerics for the areas which they had left, and thus began to build a new hierarchy. They were supported by numerous monks who had been roused to passionate opposition against the new policy of the church. The severity of Paul II of Antioch had been the cause of this. So we're a powerless fringe minority. Nobody knew of us, but somehow we're able to ordain more bishops, and somehow in response to the persecutions, you find us multiplying and multiplying. Are like it's not serious.
Yeah,
Paul,
and
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
sorry, yeah, I just want to say, right, if we take a look at this quote that Craig has on screen here. So Severus had to struggle with low numbers of committed anti-Chalcedonian clergy. And then it continues. So it's really convenient that Craig cut off the quote when he did. Because you want to know what else the quote says? And I took this straight from the book. The quote says, sorry, just 1 second. I have to pull it out. This is what it says. The persecution waged against anti-Chalcedonians by the successors of Paul the Jew, Euphrates, who perished in the great earthquake in Antioch in 526, and more especially Ephraim, would have exacerbated the problem. Why don't you include this? Why did you cut this out of the quote you have on screen? Right? It really goes to show he's trying to hide the persecutions. He's trying to hide the evidence, but it's out there.
Yeah, this is a common trend with Craig. I don't know why he does it. I don't know if he does it out of ignorance. This guy mutilates and manipulates quotes to his liking. I caught him on this mid-debate one time. He was bringing up the point, one of Dioscorus' rejections of Chalcedon was he said they rejected, the consubstantiality of the human nature or something. I said, Craig, I read your article. You put in brackets the word Chalcedonian. It's not in the text. And he laughed it off and didn't bring it up for the rest of the debate.
And
He's done it a couple times here with Evagrius. Here he's doing it again. He purposely manipulates quotes. Like he alters them, physically alters them in order to make his points.
You know what I think? And I don't know anybody else who takes this position that I do, but I like to try to give as much benefit of the doubt as possible. And the way I think about it when he does do that, you're right, Agen. He does it a lot. But the way I take it is it's like a kid who wants this thing to be true. Like, we're going to Disneyland tomorrow. And then their mom said maybe, right? And like, we're going 100%. Like, they go and tell their friends we're going tomorrow. That's how he's doing it. It's like he wants this to be the case. So he convinces himself. So as far as he's concerned, he doesn't think he's lying. Like, he thinks that this is the truth because he's in denial, not the river in Egypt.
Okay. Yeah, it's an in-reading. Like, if you notice, if you can pay attention during the entire video, it's just presuppositional ecclesiology. Like, I presuppose my church is true, therefore it is true.
Exactly.
When I read history, it is true.
Exactly.
So,
It's like the Muslims with the Quran. It's the same thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just reference the Quran. But yeah, let's keep going. All right. Yeah.
All right, so Severians, which are the court non-Chalcedonians, we will find they are what the modern Oriental Orthodox were. We're a minority movement in the clergy. And I argue most laity are indifferent. And let's be honest, most laity today are indifferent. I ran into random Egyptians at the local YMCA, and like, we're Orthodox too. We sometimes go to your church. I'm like, oh, that's great. Like, you don't want to argue with people because most people aren't, armchair theologians with a YouTube channel. Most people just aren't that invested in this stuff. And so, all right, your bishop today is Oriental Orthodox. They don't even know the bishop changed. He's Chalcedonian. They don't even know the bishop changed. That happens even today. And so
That's
most
true.
of the laity are indifferent. So I would say most of the laity are normally Chalcedonian, not because they're committed Chalcedonians, just simply because they're just going with the majority church. Most people go with the flow.
I want to add something here. Yeah, you'll find that in every denomination, really. But the motivations for why that's the case are different. Chalcedonians have to grow up in their parishes knowing who we are. Your religion is about us. Oh, is my mic?
You cut out. Yeah, you're good. You're good now.
I heard him.
I heard
Yeah.
you, yeah.
I was saying most Chalcedonians have to grow up knowing about us. Your fasts are built in opposition to our fasts. Your councils are built in opposition to our theology. You guys know about our church. You guys are educated that way because your religion is a schismatic one. It's built against ours. Whereas for us, when we have that, ecumenist tendency, I was like that. I know from experience. There's a Eastern Orthodox versus Oriental Orthodox thing. That's because we just offer the benefit of the doubt. When your group says it's all semantics, this isn't that big of a deal, it's because you guys have seen how ahistorical your position is. When we say things like that in Our Lady, it's because we give the benefit of the doubt. Oh, you guys say you're Orthodox? Oh, we say we're Orthodox? Oh, that's awesome. Oh, you guys say two natures, we say one nature? Maybe we're focusing on the union, you guys are focusing on the distinction. That type of thinking. We're giving you the benefit of the doubt. It is true. Laity have a more kind of not discerning the nuances of these things, but on both sides, it's for very different reasons, and that's very telling.
Right. And I brought this up because like in my against the Kyle video that I made, when he made like some of these same points that Craig was making, the Eastern Orthodox, modern, and even past apologetic, and I found a lot of Chalcedonian apologetics today are just, okay, this denomination is wrong, this denomination is wrong, this denomination is wrong, but never, why is our denomination right? There's no assertion. There's no, you should be Eastern Orthodox because. It's always Oriental Orthodox is gay. Don't be that. Like, okay, and like, well, what's going on here? Like, why should we be Eastern Orthodox? Like, not only is that claim untrue, why should we be Eastern Orthodox?
Yeah, it's presupposing
Listen to this, guys.
their position and their church, their ecclesiastical rules.
Yeah, like we're talking about lay people and how they understand Christology. I was talking to my dad. I was yesterday, 2 days ago, and I'm like, Dad, he's evangelical. Pray for him. I go, Dad, when the Syriac fathers began to write in Arabic, when they began to write apologetics in Arabic, that's about the turn of the first millennium. When they're translating things, they're using cognates that are more natural. So, for example, kiana in Syriac is kayan in Arabic. It's a natural cognate. So they're not using tabi'a for nature. They're using kayan, which is a more natural because it just comes direct. Kiana, kayan. Okay. I'm like, so Dad, how many kayan is Jesus? Is he kayan wahid or kayanin? One kayan or two? He goes, of course, one. He says, we can't say two. My dad's evangelical. He says, we can't say kayanin. I'm like, why, Dad? He goes, because that means two beings. And then you could separate them.
Yeah, I want to add a point. That's actually a brilliant point.
It's that easy.
Yeah, the amount of times I've heard in my life, Chalcedonians like intuitively Freudian slipping. I was listening to Father Peter Heers discussing the interpretation of Matthew 16, the rock. And he goes, oh, the rock is the theanthropic nature of Jesus. What? The what? The theanthropic nature? Because it's just that intuitive, the God-man. Think about when somebody says, what is Christology? Just ask somebody, your first thought that comes to your head, what is your Christology? Oh, it's the discussion on the nature of Christ. What? The discussion about what? Oh, the nature of Christ. Nobody says it's the discussion of the two things in Christ. Nobody says it's Peter confessed the two things about Christ, right? Intuitively, it's only really once you start to indoctrinate two natures among everyone in media, in your favorite YouTube apologist that's usually Catholic, your favorite Protestant preacher, then we start to like commit to these extra phrases, and especially among Oriental Orthodox laity, they just adopt it. It's fine. That's just how everyone uses that language. So I don't know if Craig's going to make a bigger point off this, but we'll see. Let's keep it going.
I doubt. Yeah, let's keep going.
The clergy are non-Chalcedonian. So clearly non-Chalcedonianism or committed non-Chalcedonianism is the minority church at this latest stage. So that being said, we have Severus was technically never expelled, but abdicated to avoid a synodical trial. And this is kind of important. So as a court,
that's not what happened.
He abdicated.
That's not what happened. The Libellus of Hormistus came around. He left so that they don't kill him. That's what happened. John of Tella says, he talks about it. Read Volker Menzi, Justinian and the Making of the Syrian Orthodox Church. Volker Menzi is a Chalcedonian. Go read it.
I think he's assuming
he knows about this. He's purposely not talking about it.
He's assuming like going to Alexandria is like becoming Bishop of Rakoti or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, bro. He's a loser, bro. He ran. You shouldn't have ran. Chicken.
So
like, I don't know, bro.
yeah, subdeacon, you're talking about this persecution that's ongoing throughout the empire from 518. Saint Severus was, after he was deposed or after he fled to Alexandria, he was replaced by a man named Paul II of Antioch, who we refer to as Paul the Jew. Simple, and this is a really important figure in history. The amount of why do you think he's called Paul the Jew, right? The amount of evil that he perpetrated, it's insane. And I want simple. Can you please tell us a little bit about Paul the Jew and the sort of actions that he committed, the terrible acts, the murderers, the massacres? Just tell us a little bit about Paul the Jew.
And tell us if you guys know. If you don't know, I could talk about it. But if you know, tell us about his installation. Because even according to Chalcedonian sources and canons, his installation was uncanonical, and there's scholarship about this.
Yeah, and I'll do that. And if you want to bounce off it, subdeacon, go for it. But Paul the Jew, like Moss just said, there's a very specific reason we call him Paul the Jew. And for my modern viewers,
to Craig, by the way, they're related.
there's a reason. I won't say it on stream. I don't want to get struck down. But while I'm reading, see if you can notice. When Paul the Jew was elevated to patriarch in 519, Justin endowed him with 1,000 pounds of gold to attempt to win over some of the clergy. So he was buying off the clergy. Well, shut it down. Anyway, Paul essentially went city by city in all the provinces under Antioch's jurisdiction that he could, deposing the non-Chalcedonian bishop and forcing clergy to sign the papal libellus. Paul had a short yet violent tenure, and it was fiercely resisted as people clamored for martyrdom. Philoxenus tells us that the people of Antioch, regardless of their religious preferences or against Chalcedon, gave Paul the cognomen or the name Jew.
You know, they don't canonize him. They don't canonize Paul.
I wouldn't either. Because sorry, go ahead.
And okay, he was put in by no synod, just like Severus was deposed by no synod. Justin puts him in by the choice of Hormisdas of Rome. So what is your ecclesiology, Truglia?
I want to add something.
Go ahead.
Subdeacon, tell me, because I want to keep this so simple for the viewer. Subdeacon, tell me, how was Paul the Jew installed?
He's installed because Pope Hormisdas of Rome chose him, and Justinian was like, okay.
Good. And according to Severus' own slide, what happened to Severus? How did he no longer become Patriarch of Antioch?
Because he wouldn't sign the formula, so Justin was gonna go get him, and he had to go into exile.
Was there any synod or anything?
No.
Okay. So no synod once, no synod twice. Let's shift back to Alexandria. After what timestamp are we in?
We are 1 hour almost exactly.
1:03:30.
Good. So in 1 hour, he agrees Peter Mongus is canonical Patriarch of Alexandria. And in 1 hour, he failed to show Severus was canonically deposed or he was uncanonically installed. So in 1 hour, Alexandria is solid, Antioch is solid. I just want that simple in everyone's mind, according to his own words. That he has to now make up history. Severus really abdicated. That's really what happened. Severus, he just woke up one day. Maybe it was the era, when little kid Severus or something, when he was a young guy and Timothy said, yeah, Cyril rejected two natures. Maybe it was that era. Severus said, I want to stop being the...
Perhaps. Yeah. And again, you see this, you'll see this. Like, his whole argument is Severus ran away. Okay, what's the argument for Paul the Jew? What is the for argument here? Why should we accept Paul the Jew? Like literally, Paul the Jew said that it's talked to him in the Chronicle about outside the city, monks were put to death when they refused to conform. Michael the Syrian relates to us. He assembled all the Syrian bishops, harassed them, this is Paul the Jew, to make them accept the Council of Chalcedon. Those who accepted were sent back to their thrones, but those who refused were sent into exile. He lists all the names of the bishops who are exiled, but also said we have omitted the bishops from smaller places, as well as the innumerable priests and deacons who, along with the senior clerics, were sent into exile, imprisoned, and placed in chains in Constantinople and Alexandria. After many investigations, threats, tortured, those who still refused to accept Chalcedon were strangled. He also lists those who were not exiled and imprisoned, but rather killed in Syria. Entire monasteries across the provinces were tortured and slaughtered. The villages and cities of the Orthodox in the areas of Ras Al Ain to Baghdad and Euphrates were turned into a desert because there was no one left. And for those who fled and temporarily saved themselves, they were later hunted down and killed. During his short rule, Paul the Jew was fiercely resisted. People clamored for martyrdom. Outside the city, monks were put to death. Again, when they refused to conform. This is another source talking about the same thing. So this guy was never accepted. Sorry, just wrapping it up. Paul the Jew never accepted, killed everybody, forced everybody to accept him. Okay, he was illegally installed by Justin and the Pope of Rome, while Severus never got deposed officially, and we still don't have proof of that.
You know his successors were not better. They have one. His name is Abraham. They have like 8 guys before Severus finally dies in 538. He outlives like 8 of their guys. So one of them, his name is Abraham. I think under him, they had a monk held down, one of our monks held down, Syriac Orthodox, and they forced him to receive their communion, and he spits it out, so then they burned him alive. St. John of Tella under Ephraim of Amid. St. John of Tella, he flees to Persia. He has him caught in Persia, brought back, and he has him publicly executed. This is the guys that Craig is telling us, you live by the sword, you die by the sword.
I heard a story that St. Philoxenus, they trapped him in his house and basically smoked him to death.
They poisoned
it was
him.
terrible.
They poisoned him, yeah.
Oh, okay. I heard they that. Okay, go ahead.
I have a question, Moss.
Go ahead.
He says Severus abdicated to avoid a synodical trial. What trial is he talking about? What synod?
We assume 518 here.
Okay. I was just curious. All right, let's continue.
Because, if you remember, nobody was present at 518. The bishops who were deposed at 518 weren't present. And Volker Menze relates this. It was an injustice because nobody was made aware of their deposition. Everybody fled prior because of the libellus that Subdeacon mentioned and the threat of persecution and death. So we can continue.
Chalcedonian, Severus' fortunes waned with imperial protection. And so when Paul of Antioch was consecrated as patriarch, he was accepted by all the patriarchs by Alexandria. But it shows you that, like, other applications in the past and in the future, it's legitimate that they could replace you. And it doesn't make him an anti-patriarch because there's not 2 bishops in the city. There was full acceptance of Paul of Antioch's line in 537, 538.
Wait, pause.
His side is the...
Is his standard not being in the city means you're not a bishop? Did I hear that right?
I guess. I don't know.
Did St. Athanasius abdicate 5 times?
It does seem like that is his standard because he's going to later go on and say when Pope Theodosius of Alexandria was sent to the court of Empress Theodora, he quote-unquote abdicated too. It's complete tomfoolery. But yes, that seems to be his standard. If you're not in the city, you've abdicated. If you're fleeing persecution, you've abdicated. Are we serious? Whatever. Let's continue.
Side that's vindicated, not Severus. Now let's do a summary, because I think for all the disputes that people bring up, they're gonna have to take one or two of 2 sides, and both sides ultimately concede to the point I'm trying to make. The Severian modern Oriental Orthodox line of successors don't originate, by the way, with Severus. They originate with Jacob Baradai. So
We'll get there.
So Severus, this is more of almost a historical lesson to learn than something that's actually relevant to the modern dispute. But despite that, as a condescension sensibilities, I will discuss this. Nevertheless, Severus was never a legitimate patriarch if violent mobs and imperial force always invalidate. So the claim's going to be that there's all this violence of Chalcedon, there's all this violence from Justinian, or what, the stereotypes you hear, which aren't fully accurate, as we've already covered. If we go by the stereotypes, Severus actually lives by those stereotypes. He actually got into power because of violence. And
can you I wish he would just
So
provide examples.
How was he removed?
Good
By
question.
the emperor and the formula of Hormisdas. That's how he was removed, right? So
Yes.
Paul the Jew was installed like that, right?
Yes.
So Paul the Jew is not legitimate, right? And Juvenal getting put back into Jerusalem was by the soldiers, right?
Yes.
Okay, so it's either the Syriac Orthodox Church is the continuity of the Church of Antioch solely, or the Church of Antioch doesn't exist.
Let's continue.
if we're going by that, then he was never legitimately patriarch. So clearly they're not going to accept that. So what's the other choice? If violence and imperial force are secondary, they're bad, but they're not deal breakers. We could still have real consent, like what sadly occurred during the disease that cannot be named. Non-contributing factors, then Severus' abdication and Paul's consecration are allowable, provided the majority of the synod accepted him. Like,
why does he just presuppose that Saint Severus abdicated? Where is the evidence?
Yes, guys. He came in with swords and he left without swords. He decided, I'm just gonna go take a vacation to Rakote.
That's actually a really good point. Like, if he came in with all this violence, he just dipped. Like, he's not gonna defend himself. I don't understand.
Right, and
you
also,
could have hired like all the mercenaries again, like he did. I'll have him on speed now.
Realize how he's saying that Paul's consecration is allowable, provided the majority of the synod accepted him. The majority of the synod didn't accept him. We explained how he went city to city across the jurisdiction of Antioch, through the east, replacing, exiling, killing under his command. The majority of the synod didn't accept him. His own people,
it's the majority.
right?
It's the majority because he killed everyone who didn't.
I guess, but his own people didn't accept him, right? Philoxenus related earlier that both Chalcedonians and non-Chalcedonians called Paul the Jew, right? Only Rome and Constantinople recognized Paul the Jew, but that's not his own synod, right? I thought, according to Craig, we need the consent of all the patriarchs and our local synod. So according to Craig's very own standards, Paul the Jew is a fake parallel patriarch.
I'm trying not to crash out like really badly right now, but this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Violence and imperial force are secondary, non-contributing factors. Says they're non-contributing. Okay, I want to ask you a question. What does the word majority mean? Just like English, that's a trick question. What's the word majority? What does that mean? Someone can answer.
More than half.
Right, more people. Right.
More
okay.
people, yeah.
Who decides who's the people there in the first place? Paul the Jew. He's the one exiling you if you disagree and killing you. So on what basis can you say Paul the Jew had the majority if he killed everyone who disagrees? How do you measure that?
You know what this is exactly like? Exactly. You guys are too young to remember this. ISIS. When ISIS had their state, they had a Majlis Shura, like of scholars, like to be like this authoritative council body thing in their government. So when the Da'wah kids, now the ones in England, back then there were all these scholars in England who would argue with each other about it. So one of them said, they're the scholars. They're the majority of the scholars. What are you going to do? And the other one would say, yeah, because they killed the rest of them.
Okay. Let's keep going.
Canon 4, Canon 6, and Nicaea. All right, so going by B, the succession of Paul and then the Chalcedonian line is legitimate, especially considering Severus represented a minority. Now, let's get into the canonical obscurity in Alexandria. Theodosius was...
So go back 10 seconds. Just, I want to look at a slide. So right now, remember, an hour and 2 minutes in, Alexandria has been safe, which is why he's going back to it. Secondly, by his own mouth, he knows Severus didn't originate our line. He says it's Jacob Bardaeus. So in our he's already conceding Alexander and Antioch are good because of in his own church's standards. Non-Chalcedonians eventually did end up having Alexander and Antioch. But even with Severus's issue going on here right now, Severus was never a legitimate patriarch if violent mobs and imperial force always invalidate. What's the evidence Severus had violent mobs and imperial force? Zero. And then he says if violence and imperial force are secondary non-contributing factors, Severus's abdication, did Severus abdicate according to history? No. So that's another lie. And then he continues, Severus's abdication and Paul's consecration are allowable provided the majority of the synod accepted him. Did the majority of the synod accept Paul the Jew? No.
Absolutely not.
So he's presupposing three different things in order to throw shade on Severus.
Yeah.
It's in his paradigm.
And remember, if he doesn't accept that Severus was canonical up until 518 in his own church, so he was validly installed, nobody has Antioch. Nobody does. By his own church, he has to recognize Severus was put in. So let's say we grant you
That's what
Severus,
I'm saying. Exactly. Yes.
Let's say Severus was the new, mustache man. I'm not going to say his name so the stream gets taken down. He murdered everybody to get his way into Antioch. Okay, let's say I grant you that. He would still be the valid patriarch according to your own church. So the only thing that we would put in question is how did Severus leave? How is he, quote unquote, abdicated? There's no proof of it. He didn't provide any evidence. So Severus's whole tenure from his entrance to his exit, quote unquote, is completely canonical by his own church's standards.
That's what I'm trying to say, but you don't even need Craig to agree. You just have to look at the Antiochian Chalcedonian list of patriarchs. His name is there.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I want to mention, he's probably if he ever has the courage to respond to us, and he's gonna take back this abdication point, he's gonna appeal to 518. What happened after 518? Who called Severus patriarch?
Justinian.
It's done. It's done.
And I'll tell you what, he really can't. He has no ground to stand on after Saint Severus, because as we mentioned, Paul the Jew wasn't elected by his synod. He didn't have a majority. He was imposed, right?
Yeah.
So even if 518 is canonical, that's the end of the Antiochian Church. It's
Correct.
done.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
Alright.
he literally concedes, like you said earlier, that we're all good until Jacob Bardaeus, and then we were created. So then what happened until then? Like, the
That's what
Chalcedonian-
I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Look at how long he dealt with Dioscorus, Timothy, just for it settles, guys. Yeah, Peter Mongus, he's the Pope. Yeah, sorry about Severus. It's gonna happen again. It's gonna happen again right now.
Like, you have to accept Severus at some level if you're a Chalcedonian, and that's the sad part. Like, if I had to accept the guy who refuted my religion, I would probably not be in that religion. But let's just keep going.
Confession of Paul, and then the Chalcedonian line is legitimate, especially considering Severus represented a minority. Now, let's get into the canonical obscurity in Alexandria. Theodosius was the court choice from Theodora, and Gaius, who was the popular choice, were consecrated on the same day. I've seen some sources change chronology, but the most recent source in the question in the Severus, the book about Severus, I think, isn't that Haywood? Haywood's book states that they were consecrated on the same day. So Theodosius, was met with a popular uprising because he's the imperial choice. So people are in favor of non-Chalcedonianism because it's opposition to the empire. They don't want to be in favor of the emperor's ban. So there's an uprising against it. And all elements, it's not me saying, I'm quoting this, all elements in Alexandrian society supported him, Gaius. The landowners, merchants, soldiers, the common people. Gaius was exiled. So again, it shows you the emperor is persecuting him, and Theodosius, to Africa and later Sardinia.
You guys realize how Craig is taking a kamikaze approach now? The Gaianites were Julianists, right?
Mhm.
So at this point, Chalcedonian, we're done. There are no more Chalcedonians as in Alexandria, or at least they were so obscure to the point where we're not discussing them, right? So the people were divided among the Orthodox Severians and the heretical Julianists. And so he brings up this claim that two patriarchs were elected upon Saint Timothy's repose, being Saint Theodosius and Gaius. So the truth of the matter is Gaius was consecrated illegally.
Wait, before you go there,
go ahead.
Before we throw shade on Gaius,
Yes.
I can't believe I didn't even know this. This is news to me. Is he seriously taking the side of the Julianists over
Yes,
our own. Am I hearing this properly?
he
mean,
is, and he will
his
continue
own
to do
emperor, his own emperor Saint Justinian was Julianus too. So I
True.
mean, are we surprised?
How much does this guy hate us? What am I looking at?
Yeah, to continue, Gaius was consecrated illegally by Julian of Halicarnassus. I hate pronouncing that name. After Theodosius was driven out of the city, and this is relayed by three sources actually: History of the Patriarchs of Alexandria, the Chronicle of John of Niku, as well as Grillmeyer in his Christ and Christian tradition. I believe that's what that stands for, right? So an investigation. So there was a dispute. There was lots of controversy surrounding this. Oh, how can we have two patriarchs ordained on the same day? So an investigation was conducted, and it was conducted by an official named Nursus, where the validity of Theodosius was reaffirmed and Gaius was deposed. And we also have more information on the details of this investigation. So this is taken from the History of the Patriarchs, the section on Pope Theodosius I. Certain persons cried aloud, saying, Gaius was the first to be ordained. Their words, however, were not confirmed, for 120 men of the priests and officials of the city subscribed their signatures to a statement that it was Theodosius who was the first to be ordained. Then they assembled together, and the help of the Lord was with them. And he continues on, then says, it was Theodosius the Blessed who was ordained first with the consent of the bishops and people according to the canon of the church, and that 2 months after they heard that Gaius had been made patriarch, then Gaius came forward before the assembly and confessed to them that the statement was true and asked pardon for what he had done.
Imagine if Gaius was an internet apologist, poor guy. I make fun of him all the time.
Right?
Am I missing something, or do they not recognize Theodosius?
Well, I'm not too sure here.
I've heard that before, that they don't even recognize, like the last one we have in common is Theodosius. I could be mistaken.
Then I'm assuming they do recognize Theodosius, at least up until the Chalcedonian parallel was installed.
Right.
So I believe they recognize Theodosius up until I think 518. But
Okay.
that timeline might be, I'm not sure. But anyway, like the ordination of Gaius is a violation of the canons, and specifically Apostolic Canon 3132, which says, if any presbyter despising his own bishop shall collect a separate congregation and erect another altar, and not having any grounds for condemning the bishop with regard to religion or justice, let him be deposed. In like manner, also the rest of the clergy and as many as join him, and let laymen be excommunicated also. Right?
Yeah.
So according to the canons as well, the Gaianites were uncanonical, they were heretical. We can discuss that later.
Yeah. I just looked it up. Justinian recognized Theodosius. He had to be exiled. So calling into question Theodosius's entry is pretty anachronistic. I don't know why he's doing that.
Yeah.
So Theodosius appealed to imperial law of force because the Gainites, who were the Julianists, you could go to the Lines Dennis of Deacon Daniel Kakish. I have a whole video on Julianism if you want more details. Were the quote the source the most popular? The source here is Wiki. Not a very good source, right? Were the Julianists?
That's when he was still like being nice. I don't know what happened.
The Gainites actually more popular than Theodosius. Let me make a more academic case than quoting Wikipedia, though Wikipedia is a good, I don't know, stereotype of what maybe happened. My opinion is popular means most vocal and violent, right? Like BLM hitting the streets. Majority of people are probably indifferent. Majority of people just like, who's my real patriarch?
Again with BLM, this guy.
This is second time citing them again.
This is like diorite strategy, just like make everything political. It's a conspiracy.
Violent side was the majority.
BLM.
The violent side, rather, the majority violent side was the Gainites, clearly. 3,000 people died to exile during the exile of Gaius. So 3,000 people fought over it. It required 2,000 to 6,000 soldiers to assist Theodosius to take his throne. So again, the whole idea, if you need, like St. Protus, you need, and of Jerusalem, keep in my mind, the Patriarch of Jerusalem, the Chalcedon. If you need soldiers to help him, somehow they're illegitimate. Well, with Theodosius, that's what he had as well. But yet they accept Theodosius. So 2,000 to 6,000 soldiers assisted Theodosius, and 3,000 did not die defending him when he was deposed and sent to Constantinople. So I will go on a limb and say that even if most people are indifferent, the more popular of the two sides was definitely the gay knights, because the gay knights had 3,000 people willing to die. There were not that many people willing to die for Theodosius. So we actually have like kind of a popular vote where we could say, oh, Wikipedia is actually right. It's worth pointing out, because again, the apologists don't tell you, the gay knights existed for centuries. You can't be like this majority movement of non-Chalcedonianism and then somehow just like disappear overnight, right? They existed for centuries. And John of Nicaea in the 7th century lists them side by side with the Severians. So it implies, so it's not specific enough, it implies they're equal to one another, at least in the 7th century. And Michael the Syrian in the 12th century. So this is like 600 years after the events of gayness, says they only exist in some places. But the point is, they still exist. 600 years later, there weren't novations 600 years later. Canon still existed, but there were no novations 600 years later. There is no real original Marcionites, no real original Manichees. I mean, they all disappeared. They got replaced with other similar groups. But gay knights still existed. They still existed because they were much more popular than the imperialist court non-Chalcedonians.
All right, I'm going to pause right here and quickly refute all this. So I'm glad he's citing John of Nicaea, but unfortunately, as we know, in typical fashion, things are left out. So this is what John of Nicaea says. So first of all, nowhere in his corpus did he claim that the gay knights were equal to the Severians. And I looked, and please, if I'm wrong, please show me where he says this. What John of Nicaea does say, however, was that there was strife in the city. Some said, we are Theodosians, and others said, we are gay knights. And this is from the 6th century amidst the initial conflict, right? So the gay knights, much like the Chalcedonians, formed a parallel sect and line, ordaining their own uncanonical patriarchs until they are no longer mentioned by the 9th century. So he tries to mention how, oh, Michael the Syrian was a 12th century historian, and he talks about them. But first of all, no quote is provided. Second of all, yeah, Michael is a historian. He recorded past events in history. Right? He's not attesting to them being contemporary people. So you'd hope, you'd hope Craig knows this. But additionally, like if they were much more popular than the Severian non-Chalcedonians, as Craig is claiming, why did they cease to exist? Will he provide any sources at all? Additionally, we know the religious convictions of the gay knights. So they weren't only Julianists, they were Manichaeans and Phantasiasts. I hope I pronounced that right. They were condemned heretics along with the Tritheists, the Agnotae, and the Chalcedonians, right? They were a heretical sect that lost prominence and fell into obscurity as the years passed. John Nicaea says that the foolish masses who were blinded by their disdain for the empire and supported gayness rejoined the side of the Orthodox Church. Additionally, we have another quote from Gromeyer saying, when the Severan Church was reorganized, the influence of the Gaonites began to diminish. After Emperor Justin II, which was between 565 and 578, they seem to have no longer played the principal role in the Monophysite Church. Additionally, from the Arab conquest of Egypt, the Gaonites must have been a very small body in the time of Cyrus, which is the 7th century. So once again, we refute this claim that the Gaonites were somehow the majority and that the non-Chalcedonian Orthodox Miaphysites were a minority.
And so we have this comment. We said, you see a similar thing that appeared between Palamas, initial victor of Barlaam, and the later Palamite councils, where the majority sided the anti-Palamite factions for a time. And yeah, sometimes, I would say when it settles very quickly in favor of one side, that's a good indication of when the persecution stops, which side people actually agree with. So like with the non-Chalcedonians and the gay knights, you have a good example of when both sides are persecuted, what side people side with, and then it starts evening out. But when non-Chalcedonianism was accepted by the government, most were siding with the gay knights. Now to continue, Theodosius then goes into a sort of voluntary exile. And it's a voluntary exile because he relied upon imperial protection.
Voluntary.
So they say, listen, we don't.
Voluntary.
It was so voluntary. When Theodosius.
What is a voluntary exile? Before we figure out if it's true or not,
it's like voluntary abdication. It's like, okay, guys, I was wrong. I'm leaving.
Take me to Nola, you know.
Take me to Rakote.
Nice
bro.
Rome. Okay, simple. Why wasn't this a voluntary exile?
Because Theodosius himself says, like, neither life nor death, nor dearth, nor nakedness, nor sword will turn my heart from the faith of my fathers. He rejected Chalcedon. nor will I abandon a jot or tittle of what my fathers, the inspired doctors, wrote before me, those shepherds of the reasonable flock of Christ, from Mark the Evangelist to the day on which I was made a deacon by the Father Timothy, after whom I became a patriarch by the dispensation of God. So when the prince, or Justinian, could not, could not draw Theodosius to his doctrine, he left him and sent him into banishment in disgrace. So, like,
Sounds pretty voluntary to me.
like that's, I don't know. When he
Am I
literally
wrong?
says, "I'm not giving up my faith," and you have to force me if you want me to give up anything, then
Am I wrong or not? But whenever Truglia mentioned imperial support of Theodosius, who was the emperor at the time? It was Justinian, no?
Yes.
Is the imperial support he's trying to throw shades at not his own saint?
Yeah, I guess so. And I'm assuming this so-called imperial support is just everyone being housed in Empress Theodora's castle. That's this imperial support.
You're on mute, Subdeacon.
Subdeacon, you're muted, yeah.
He said last time that he thinks Theodora was Chalcedonian.
yes.
Okay, so Justinian and Theodora are our support now?
No, she was pretending to help us. It was a side.
Okay.
That is a good
He's
callback.
pretending, and Justinian helping us. Why? So, Craig, please, man, get help or something. Look, this is not
Be
how
careful.
you should be thinking. You shouldn't be thinking like this. It's a wrong.
Bro.
Like I think he's a historian too. Like, I don't think it's just me. So this is not how history is supposed to be read and understood objectively. It's very wrong.
And I do want to say, right, some people, some of the audience might think we're taking a rather aggressive approach to this. But Craig Truglia, as you said, he's a historian. He
It's
makes
because
these
I
videos.
expect more from him.
Exactly. He's
That's
held
why.
to a higher standard, right?
Exactly.
So he's not innocent or free of scrutiny and ridicule, especially when he's not citing anything. That's the issue we take when our church is being attacked and these claims that are thrown around are baseless, grounded in imagination. That's the issue that we have, coming from a self-proclaimed historian.
I want to add. So remember, Severus's rise to power is recognized by the Chalcedonians. Theodosius's rise to power has to be recognized by the Chalcedonians as well. Why? Not only is Justinian supporting him. You know why he keeps saying voluntary exile, voluntary exile, voluntary exile? Because he knows the way that they went out was shoddy. It was unbased. He knows that Severus was not canonically deposed and sent into exile. He knows Theodosius was not canonically deposed and sent into exile. So they recognize they're coming into power, and Craig inherently knows they're, quote unquote, leaving out of power sucks. There's no basis for it. And not only that, Paul of Alexandria, after being put in, his slide says it. The very guy was also deposed in 542.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. The only way, and even then, not really, but the only way that Craig can claim that his parallels had proper succession from their predecessors was that they abdicated. That's the only way. So no matter how the history looks, and no matter how the history is clearly against him, he must argue for their abdication. Otherwise, sorry, I'll just finish. Otherwise, you uncanonically deposed and replaced while they were still alive, while they were still serving as patriarchs.
Yeah, if he knew that these depositions were good and valid and solid and matched the canons, you know what he'd do? He'd put it on his slides. But instead, we have to imagine there was some magical fairy that went on the loose from the jungles in Africa and took possession of Theodosius and took possession of Severus and started whispering in their ear, voluntarily abdicate, leave. All the times you said that you wouldn't go under persecution, trust me, just buckle. And go to vacation to Rakote or wherever you want to go to. We'll pay for it.
Just go, just leave. All right.
Yeah, and just to give some more context, Pope Theodosius was replaced by Paul of Tabenesis the same person we covered extensively, his wickedness, his illegitimacy, how his own synod, of course, rejected him, and of course, his persecution. I think we can continue now.
Don't want you here anymore. We'll let you be safe in Constantinople. Is that persecution? Or is that saying, listen, we're not going to protect you anymore with all these soldiers if you don't accept us, and they're just going to kill you? Or you don't hear that very often. That's not so much a persecution against Theodosius, is it? So he did rely upon imperial protection, so it was actually a voluntary exile. Was it a very nice and
just a random thing that I want to say? Nothing to do with what he's talking about. This is the same guy. I just want the viewers to remember. This is the same guy who, against all of scholarship, says the letter of Phoebus to Mari was not accepted at Chalcedon. I just want everyone to remember that. Go ahead.
Wait, go back 10 seconds. I want to listen to this. Play it.
these soldiers if you don't accept us, and they're just going to kill you?
Wait, go back again,
even more. Yeah.
Execution? Or is that saying
Go back again.
So if they say, listen, we don't want you here anymore, we'll let you be safe in Constantinople, is that persecution? Or is that saying, listen, we're not going to protect you anymore with all these soldiers if you don't accept us, and they're just going to kill you? Or you don't.
They're just gonna kill you.
He's relying. Listen, he's relying on the Gaianite narrative that he put up. So he's assuming, or the narrative that he's trying to put out is that the Gaianites were trying to kill Pope Theodosius, and they didn't want to protect him anymore, so they shipped him off to Constantinople. Where is he getting this from? He's making this up on the spot. And
he just said it's not that we were persecuting Theodosius. We just told him, "You're gonna die." What? What does that mean?
Yeah. So he's trying to claim that the Gaianites were the ones doing the persecutions. I'm assuming.
So hold on. When the people who are watching this, you know how many times before we made our response, from when he made this until now, how many times people were adding us saying, when are you guys going to respond? You guys needed a response. Like, and the people who are on his side watching, they're not thinking like, yeah, like kind of we're threatening him by his life. Like it's not common sense. It's not clicking.
They threw, I got a reply on a Twitter day. Some EO is like, Craig is just a YouTube convert. Nobody takes his history seriously. Like, I mean, like their own side. I didn't see anybody like pressing us to respond to this. It was really just like a couple people from our side. But go back, because you're giving him too much benefit of doubt, Moss. He wasn't talking about the Gaianites. Go back 10 seconds.
Okay.
Okay, play
So
it.
if they say, listen, we don't want you here anymore, we'll let you be safe in Constantinople, is that persecution? Or is that saying, listen, we're not going to protect you anymore with all these soldiers if you don't accept us, and they're just going to kill you?
Who's they? I think he's talking about the soldiers here. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no. The context
he's talking about
makes it
soldiers.
out like that. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, we're not persecuting you. We're just gonna kill you.
All right, keep going, bro. The soldiers are gonna flip flop, bro.
I do want to make a quick point in defense of the viewers, or in defense of the EO viewers, or whoever's listening to this and believing it. Craig is speaking with confidence, right? and I know that's not much, but he's speaking like these are facts. He's putting this stuff out there, whether honestly or dishonestly, maybe in ignorance, maybe he's trying to deceive. Again, I'm not going to speak on that, but he's speaking with confidence. So from an EO's perspective, you're hearing all of this and you're not hearing the other side's response. I understand where they're coming from a little bit. Let's continue.
Here's what I think is happening before we unpause. Sorry, we're stuck on this point. I genuinely think he pre-planned the stream with already conclusions about every figure. He already went on a Wikipedia search. Okay, I'm gonna say Theodosius. He didn't go in properly. He didn't leave properly. Severus didn't go in properly. He didn't leave properly. Dioscorus didn't go in properly. He didn't leave properly. He already had that conclusion. Looked at the evidence and decided, how am I going to fare that? Yeah, he voluntarily exiled because they weren't gonna persecute him. They were just gonna murder him.
Yeah, and you will see more of this. Especially, I read a comment, especially when he discusses the Ethiopian Synod. But we'll get there eventually.
You don't hear that very often. That's not so much a persecution against Theodosius, is it? So he did rely upon imperial protection. So it was actually a voluntary exile, though. Was it a very nice and Christian-like exile? Of course not. Now, Paul
At least he
Alexander's
says
custodian was
that.
elected in his place.
I mean, he
Alex, I think you're a great
admits
guy.
it.
Thank you, Craig.
He was deposed in 542 by Antioch, Jerusalem, and the Ecumenical Patriarchate for Origenism and murder. But the fact that they had to then depose him, all the patriarchs, shows that they accepted all the patriarchs accepted him as patriarch beforehand. So
What? Where's the evidence? Like, why is he making these unsubstantiated claims so freely?
depose him, all the patriarchs, shows that they accepted all the patriarchs accepted him as patriarch beforehand. So
All the patriarchs accepted him. Is he not going to list and show us this?
patriarchal acceptance of the replacement for Theodosius. Now let's give a summary for Alexandria. The Severian or modern Oriental Orthodox line of successors doesn't precisely originate with Theodosius. It kind of tangentially does. We'll get into that. But granting this for a moment, okay? Theodosius was either never a legitimate patriarch. If we go by violent mob was legitimate, and imperial law and order is bad.
Just let him finish. Let him finish his.
No, I wasn't going to say anything.
Right? So
Sorry.
never a legitimate patriarch. If we go by violent mob was legitimate, and imperial law and order is bad thesis, right? So if he becomes power because imperial law and order smashes a mob and somehow it's bad to have imperial law and order, then he was never patriarch to begin with. We don't accept this. If law and order reflects consent, right? Like most people are law abiding, even in imperial times. So that reflects the consent of the people. And what the majority of the synod accepts is legitimate. Again, even the canons state this. Theodosius was one, legitimate, but two, voluntarily abdicated, was canonically replaced. So going by B, succession of Paul, and then the Chalcedonian line is legitimate.
Where do you get this from? Voluntarily. We're just gonna kill you if you don't leave.
It's really bad. It's really bad.
Greg, why do you do this to yourself? Why?
Is that it?
Let's continue. Let's not take this as an opportunity to flame him. Let's continue.
Now, only so briefly, let's get into the canonical obscurity in Constantinople.
Okay, here we're getting into the meat of
imperial
this stuff.
support, because this is Constantinople after all.
Neat.
Chalcedonian agitation against them gained support of the ecumenical patriarchal synod and Pope of Rome, and they depose Anthemus. The council was held in 536 to accept the deposition, and in the process officially deposed Severus as well, and has pan-patriarchal acceptance by 537 to 538.
So I wonder if you guys recall, Craig's standard for a deposition was what? What was Craig's standard for the deposition of a patriarch? Whose consent was required? Not the majority. The majority of the synod, as well as
the pentarchy.
The pentarchy. Who I don't know if anyone wants to answer this. Who consented to the deposition of Anthemus? Subdeacon, do you know?
You're talking about Rome, Yani?
Rome?
Eh?
Anyone else?
Peter's.
Yes, Rome. Anyone else? Anybody?
No.
No?
Peter,
Absolutely
Peter
right.
Peter the Apostle.
Oh, the Holy Trinity.
The chair. This is the chair of Peter, bro. The entire chair.
It was just Rome. What happened? What happened to our consent of all the patriarchs? You know, this standard is so baseless. If
he's relied on the papacy so many times and just forgot to say it.
Yeah.
God is very generous of you. God is very generous of you.
Right? Like we recalled earlier how Pope Felix III deposed 3 patriarchs, Alexandria, Constantinople, and Antioch, as well Pope Aegyptus, also Agapitus. He also deposed 3 patriarchs, right? Anthemus was not the only patriarch deposed by him. Saint Severus and Saint Theodosius, their depositions were reaffirmed by Pope Agapitus. So we have one patriarch deposing or condemning or reaffirming the deposition of 3 others.
Yeah.
Let's continue.
And in the process, officially deposed Severus as well, and has pan-patriarchal acceptance by 537 to 538. Now let's get into the parallel church of the non-Chalcedonians and how this started and whether it's canonical. Clearly, we'll get into the details.
How many hours are we in before he actually goes
How
into
many
all of these?
hours? It's felt like 3 hours.
It's been an hour and now we're schismatics. Before that, nah. Okay.
I think we're going to continue to delay this. We'll see.
To quote Haywood, by 530, after more than a decade of persecution, The anti-Chalcedonian church, particularly in Syria, was suffering from a
Hold
dearth
on.
of clergy that even
Hold on. After more than a decade of persecution.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's
Go
see if he revisits that
That was
point.
self we killed ourselves. Anyway, let's keep going.
the energetic Severus and other exiled bishop were incapable or unwilling to make good. When John of
Right,
Tella,
pause
in the
right here.
district of Us,
I think you guys are strawmanning Craig. By decade of persecution, it was voluntarily abdicating. We just
we
getting
all just
recommended.
left.
That's what Simple said. But
we
it's
were getting
okay.
vacation emails, and we accepted
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Torohoni in East Syria began to ordain anti-Chalcedonian clergy. The response was overwhelming. A separatist and independent church was born. So John of Tella begins a parallel church. We have a hello, Enoch.
That's a good timing.
that
You
being
just
said-
started.
Not willing to make good. Why didn't Severus, as a court non-Chalcedonian, make more bishops, right? Why was there a dearth of clergy and he wasn't helping fix it? Well, you don't bite the hand that feeds you, right? If you are a court bishop that is housed by the court and patronized by St. Theodora, you don't bite the hand that feeds you. You try to work within the system that exists, even if you're against a lot of things in that system.
Hold
I
on.
would also point out, it's not this.
Hold on. What? Severus was in the desert in Egypt.
Yes.
What is he talking about? What
I
court?
don't know.
What court? Severus wasn't living in the court, buddy. Okay. And then East Syria, John of Tella. John of Tella was in the mountains and in the Persian Empire.
Yes.
That's where he was.
Yes.
He has nothing to do with the imperial church at this time. So if he's ordaining bishops, he's ordaining bishops that the Assyrian Church of the East has to deal with, not you.
Severus was totally self-serving. I would say that Severus would have had some desire. I would actually trust he had every desire to try to help his non-Chalcedonian movement. Because in court non-Chalcedonianism still realistically had a chance of Justinian's full support until 536.
I hate how he tries to portray everything as some sort of political game.
Yeah,
Right? He's describing Saint Severus as, yeah, you could have won, right? You could have had the favor of the court and had the favor of the empire. We don't care, right? More than anything, and this is a theme throughout history, the Orthodox Miaphysites, our priority is preserving the truth and the fullness of the truth. Not winning the empire's support, not being the court and having Justinian's favor. Let's continue.
I just thought of
this
a
would-
good analogy. I'll hold it for a little bit, but I don't
Go
want to
ahead.
be toxic. It's
Okay.
literally
No
he
problem.
thinks it's like no, I'll just say it was whatever.
Okay.
He thinks this is like Star Wars. Like it's like Republic versus like the Separatists. Like
Yeah,
this
yeah.
isn't like we're not fighting for control. Like we're trying to stay alive so the truth is
But
maintained.
that's the thing. That's what I always say. These guys are the church of the emperor. They're the Melkites, Melkaye, we call them.
Yes.
Okay, let's keep going.
Let's continue.
It's Bishop of Constantinople after all. So aren't you, and Severus dies 2 years later, so aren't you going to like bide your time? It looks like you're hearing the rumblings, you even have a Bishop of Constantinople. Aren't you going to be patient, go, maybe I can make a comeback? Maybe we don't have to violate the canons because we're going to officially get support.
What canons did Saint Severus violate?
Still
Is
waiting
it-
on those.
There's a canon that says if you voluntarily abdicate, we can place a Jew.
Like,
Good. Let's see if Craig tells us.
That's what they were hoping for. But this is my opinion. I think what changes things are the Gainites in 536. I think Gainus was way bigger, and I think his role in creating the real issue that we have today is neglected by scholarship.
We've already addressed
Not
this.
coincidentally, Jonatella's
Yeah.
on the fringes in 530, right? And Severus is winking at it, right? So he's without Severus' actual support, so to say, he's appointing all these clergy, but it kind of works in Severus' political favor because it creates a problem, and Severus is the solution to regularize all these people. So it's kind of like collateral, so to say. But then in 536, Gainus creates this parallel hierarchy that's apparently pretty flaming big in Egypt, and I think that's the real issue. So the Jacobite program.
I don't understand this argument at all. Does anyone have anything to say about that whole spiel?
He's saying the Julianists in Egypt. Is that what he's talking about?
Yes, he mentioned the Gainites, but other than that, like
Yeah. So there was like a struggle between the Orthodox and the Julianists in Egypt.
right.
It got to a point where the Julianists had the political favor in Egypt, and the Orthodox had to go underground for a while, like during the
But I just want to say,
yeah,
the Gainites didn't have the political favor. Nobody had the political favor. There was no political favor during this time. In fact, again, the Chalcedonian parallel during this time was Paul of Tabenesis. Nobody loved him. Everybody hated him. He can only survive with his crew of soldiers around him. So, but you're right. The Gainites were a majority, for some period until, of course, they weren't.
Yeah. So, like, we have an example in the conversations of 536 between us and them in Constantinople, where they kind of throw it in our face. Are you guys in communion with Alexandria? They're talking about the Julianists there. And then we're saying we're in communion with the Orthodox Alexandria, not with the Julianists.
All right, let's continue.
Only begins years later in 557, where Jacob Bardai goes between Constantinople and the Eastern Front, I'll call it, in Syria. Only after this, Theodosius of Egypt, who's in Constantinople by this point, responds in 558 with implicitly court-approved non-Chalcedonian patriarchs resident in Constantinople. So as we can see, this parallel program starts as collateral in negotiations between Severus and Justinian, all right? And it's not with bishops. And then it becomes a response to a lost hope and a political solution, right? You have the Gainites of this whole parallel hierarchy, and you have it clear that you're just in exile in Constantinople, and you're never going to get another patriarch Constantinople that is non-Chalcedonian. All right, so you have start this collateral negotiations, then becomes lost hope, and then it becomes, as we're going to find, an arms race between feuding non-Chalcedonian factions. Another thing that's neglected, right? If one non-Chalcedonian faction like the Gainites starts getting all these bishops, and then this other Severian side starts getting all these bishops, well, then you're left behind unless you start making bishops. So the whole modern parallel church movement in Oriental Orthodoxy didn't begin like as a carefully thought out plan, but a response to events that cascaded out of control.
All right. So simple. So during this period, after Paul the Jew was long gone, in Antioch, the Chalcedonian successor was, there was a few, but the most notable at this point was, first was Euphrasyus, right? He was the immediate successor. Mm-hmm. He continued to persecute the Orthodox, particularly directed at monks, but he was killed by an earthquake. And then he was succeeded by who, subdeacon or simple? A man named Ephraim. Ephraim. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Simple. Do you mind telling us about Ephraim here?
Yeah. So
he was a Syrian.
Moss summarized it right after Euphrates' death and Justinian came to power. Numerous bishops were able to return from exile, but this was short-lived as Ephraim, the military commander of the East, was uncanonically made the Patriarch of Antioch by Justinian. He never gave peace to his opponents, the Orthodox Severians, during the whole 18 years of his rule. Okay, so he's a military commander, and he was made a patriarch. Remember that. Ephraim persecuted.
Sorry, I just want to add something. He remained a military commander. It's not as if he gave up this status as soon as he was elevated. He continued to be the military commander while he was Patriarch of Antioch, which is a violation of the canons that we will discuss later. Continue, simple.
Yeah, I got you. Ephraim persecuted the faithful of the East through Abraham Bar Khalil, bishop of Amidia, who sent executioners, gathered clergy, monks, and the faithful to the number of about 1,400 men and tried to force them to accept Chalcedon on the emperor's orders. Their answer was that we have been taught to obey God more than men, and he banished them, voluntarily abdicated them, and they crossed the Euphrates to the region of Claudia, persisting in anathematizing the Council of Chalcedon. This was written by Michael the Syrian.
This is where we get this strong Orthodox population in Persia, and you will continue to see this through to the early 7th century. Continue.
Yeah, Abraham Bar Khalil tried to proclaim Chalcedon on the emperor's orders. We will never accept the synod at the tome. The people cried and rioted against the bishop and the magistrates. Through the assistance of Thomas, bishop of Tella, and Bar John, he assaulted many until death, imprisoned around 50, crucified 4, and banished a great multitude from the city. By the
This is a bishop. Sorry, this is a bishop crucifying others. A Chalcedonian bishop under the orders of Ephraim. Can you believe this? Continue.
By the end of the year or early 537, supporters of Severus were being hunted by police and soldiers in their strongholds in Mesopotamia or on the Persian frontier.
So at this point, we're crossing the border, and John of Tella especially will continue to discuss. Continue.
Both John of Ephesus and Zacharias report that some of those caught were burnt alive, and once again the Monophysite monks suffered the rigors of a harsh winter, deprived of the shelter of their monasteries. So they were persecuting monks, right? And John of Ephesus goes on and talks about how deep this is. Monasteries, big and small, of the venerable monks that were all in the territories of Antioch, Seleucia, Shirin, Aleppo, Paramea, and Mabug, in the entire Arabia and Palestine, in all cities of the south and the north, in the desert of the Hermits to the boundary of Persia, and also the rest of the cities and in the regions of the entire east were persecuted, cast out, pillaged, arrested, and fettered, while detained mercilessly, delivered to death by torture, and their property confiscated. He tried to hunt down John of Tella. John posed such a danger to imperial policy that Ephraim even came to terms with Persian officials, so non-clergy or non-people of his side, and requested that they find John for the patriarch on their territory, as John had again crossed the border to Persia. So John of Tella again is he's a Miaphysite, right? He's on our side, and he made a deal with the Persians just to try to get him when he was going to the Persia.
You guys, I'll be right back. I want to go grab a book because we're about to end it, and I want to read a quote from John of Tella.
No problem.
Yeah,
and I just want to elaborate on this. People need to understand how crazy this is. We have a Byzantine general patriarch coming to terms with the Persians in the midst of a war between the two empires for the sake of hunting down one non-Chalcedonian bishop whose only crime is what? The ordination of Orthodox clergy. Clergy deemed illegal by the libellus and at odds with Ephraim's goal to pursue the complete eradication of the Orthodox. So, Craig, like, do you and I want to speak to you directly, if hopefully you're watching. Do you understand now why there was such a difficulty for Saint Severus to locate clergy? Why Severians were a quote-unquote minority? Right? The lengths that Saints Jacob Baradaeus and John of Tella had to go through to ordain non-Chalcedonian clergy across the empire when it was illegal to do so, right? We've already provided sufficient evidence to showcase that this whole area in the east, Syria, Antioch, Mesopotamia, were majority non-Chalcedonian prior to Justin. But even since this time, various imperialist attempts were employed to persecute the populace of the laity, clergy, and monks, all into submission to Chalcedon. Does anyone want to add any? Or Subdeacon, you're back?
Yes. Are we wrapping up? We're done?
Yes.
Okay. So here's this quote. A new sentence has come on the church, and this was the cause of our departure. This was the cause of our departure. For libelli were given to us, all to put our signature to. Libelli in which we were required to anathematize ourselves and those who were our fathers, and indeed more or less the entire world. For to anathematize Peter, Archbishop of Antioch, and all who remain in communion with him, and Achachios of Constantinople, and Peter of Alexandria, as well as those who persevere in communion with them. This is nothing than to anathematize ourselves and, as it were, everything under heaven.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's really nothing more to say than like
and this guy does the whole thing without even talking about the libellus. He never mentioned it.
Yeah. I mean, it like the Chalcedonian bishop has to side with other authorities, with the army. Like, remember, there's like a secular army, and he basically is hiring mercenaries just to kill the other side. Like, are we serious? This is what they accuse Severus of. It's like projection. I don't know.
Yeah. The last things I want to add is this is how he has to paint the history. An arm race rather than blood for the true faith. Because once he recognizes that it's blood for the true faith, he knows exactly what side he's on, because we have the same Christianity heritage in common for 450 years. He knows the patterns. He knows what it looks like. He knows the fake synods and the quote-unquote voluntary abdications, what those really were. So hopefully next time we're going to start with the meat of his video, Jacob Bardaeus. But notice, we are 2 streams in, and he just started talking about why we're a schismatic church. Because according to their own tradition, everything he said is undone by just how history played out. Alexandria is solid, Antioch is solid, and he knows it. And that's why he's trying to now pin it as an arms race and make a conclusion out of the rest of history. And we'll see where that goes. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We're going to stream the next one hopefully soon, probably as soon as we did this one. Let us know if you guys want to see anything else. Yeah, let's see how this plays out with the next couple of streams. It's going to get more and more. Moss, is it true it's going to get more fun, or am I lying?
It's definitely gonna get more fun. You guys just have to stay tuned and find out.
I'm gonna apologize on the next one in the beginning too. So every time when we start, I'm gonna apologize, and he's gonna piss me off again, and then I'm gonna apologize for the one after.
Yeah, thank you for having us on. As always, Apostolic Orthodoxy, Agen, whatever. And thank you for coming on, Daniel, as always, and Moss. And
my pleasure.
It's
Thank you guys for watching.
It's a great time.
Take care, everybody.
All right, bye-bye.